So let's say that's my room, right? So let's say I edit that profile, and in this case, Revit's still going to read this as, not going to read it as a wall opening, right? It's going to read this guy as join elements, right? It'll still read that as a bounding. So as opposed to the wall opening that we did prior, Revit should still read this as a wall and calculate out that it is a boundary element, right? So in the case that happens, what you need to do, let's come back to my level 4, right? Oh, so it actually cut through it. So yeah, even with the wall opening. Okay, well,
last time we said we had to do a room separator.
Yeah, we did a room separator. Well, let's just reconnect that, join that up. Delete that off. Yeah, let's say, yeah, maybe it's right in the middle of the room, right, middle of the wall. Either way, it cuts it. Let's say I don't want that calculated, like my core, right? I want to color my core all together. Actually, let's do that, right? We'll come back. It's too much stuff. So I want to make it so that room is, or that wall is not calculated in my color fill, right? But I want it to take the whole thing. What I can do is there's a room bounding property. So by default, all walls are room bounding. Underneath the basic wall properties, if I deselect room bounding, it'll fill that space back in. So that was a long way of explaining one little checkbox.
Room bounding.
Yep, room bounding. It's a very, very important piece, though. Having that is super, super critical. And really understanding some are going to be calculated, some are not, because you're going to walk onto projects where people have really, and it's an instance property, so it's only per wall. It's not for every type of wall that's like this, right? Maybe perfect example. Now I got the example. So let's say this wall, right, is only 4 foot tall. It's like a knee wall or something, right? Just a little 4-foot wall, right? It's still going to be calculated when I do the room bounding, because it's a 4 foot. But I know I'm seeing beyond it, it's part of the room, right? I would say that this is now not part of that calculation. It's not dividing that room. Cool?
So you take like the walls you've already done and change that and have like a whole...
Yeah, let's say, hey, we're gonna blast this wall out and make this this 2 unit, 1 unit. If I turn that off, doesn't know what to do. So there, it's calculating the whole one. This one, it still has the room in it, so I would delete that off. So, I mean, rooms can be tricky. Rooms can get even more tricky when you're dealing with groups. So, I mean, I know that's why we're spending so much time on them. Like I said, the way I approach, space planning and initial design, I really save a lot of time generating plans and colored elevations and just little conceptual packages off of this. I mean, taking something like the mass here, I can take this, if I just make massing, I can take this to 3ds Max and to my heart's content texturize that thing, and I have a package done in half a day. And floor plans and everything else, to a point where at least we can have a conversation, even faster than even CAD, So just be aware. And I don't, and it's until somebody shows you this, you wouldn't think about this, right? It took me a long time to really kind of approach that point of thinking with rooms. So take it, love it, enjoy it, own it, it's yours. All right, so now about areas, right? So here's my room. I'm going to separate this off. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate with detailing, so I pick up those. Tags. I'm going to call this my room plan, colored room plan. Level 4 colored plan. And then on the actual level 4, I'm going to turn off my color scheme. So that way I can go back to where it was. It's an actual kind of drawing that has no color to it. Right, no color scheme. Just a room tag, standard room. Okay. Then I'll go in and turn off my reference lines for the rooms themselves. There we go. So there's that one set up for me. And we'll recrop that view. If we want. One last thing that we didn't talk about was eventually you're going to be placing furniture into here, right? You're going to be placing beds, you're going to be placing stairs, you know, plumbing fixtures, sinks, toilets, all kinds of good stuff. Tables. Again, placing a component or placing a family that are similar, I'm going to place a component. By default, right now, it should be defaulted to it's a countertop in my case. Perhaps there should be a desk loaded in here. So I'm going to do a task chair. We'll do a task chair into this. Place a few chairs, right? So by default, when I place this chair here, the color fill is bleeding through that element. Okay. Now, since it is a task chair, and if it was set up correctly in the family to begin with, I should be able to say whether or not I want to see my color fill through the furniture or place components or not see that. So if I come into rooms, I'm going to say interior fill is on. So therefore, here we go. So here's a case where it's not set up correctly. Right? I would need to edit the type, or actually edit that family and put in that region. Let's try another one here. I know the Revit out of the box works correctly. Let's try this one. Let's try the table. There we go. So you'll see, right, if I turn that on and turn that off, so this one has it set up correctly, the Saarinen table. Right, so I'm starting to place furniture, components, laying out things. I go to VV. In some cases, you're going to want to see that color bleed through. In other cases, you're not going to want to see that color bleed through. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off interior fill. Then again, it's not working again. But that's what it's meant to do when it's set up correctly, is allow you to cut through and see beyond geometry or not see beyond geometry. Right? Revit out of the box family should work correctly. So just be aware of that.
That was VV room areas.
Yep. Traditionally, you're probably going to set up a masking region inside your families where you can just turn those on and turn those off. Whenever I do a family editing, I set up a 2D category, a 3D category, and a masking category that I can toggle all or toggle not all. This was set up to do that for that. One other place where that's going to come into play, right, I have interior fill on, interior fill off. Right now I'm on my wireframe hidden line. Make sure we're on hidden line. It should overfill on the walls as well. Yeah, it's not. Should have overfilled on the walls as well, right? Okay. We'll come back to that. So I can delete that room out. Still in the model. Delete that off. Okay. All right, so I think that exhausts rooms. Okay, area plans. So area plans are similar to the way rooms are made. They're different insofar as they're going to create an actual new plan for you. You don't have to duplicate off to make a new room plan or area plan. So to do so, I'm going to go to the same place where I found the rooms, and underneath area, I'm going to do a new area plan. And it's going to ask me what floor do I want my area plan on. In this case, we're working on level 4, so I'm going to select level 4. Click OK. And it says automatically create area boundary lines associated with the external walls and gross building area. So what this is going to do is look at all this negative space in the project versus all the positive space, and make a decision on whether or not those lines are there or not there. So by default, I generally let it do that, what it wants to do, give me my lines. And that's because if you'll see, and we zoom in here, oh, it didn't pick up any of them, did it? Huh. That's probably because I had this out there. So in this case, we don't have any.
It should have been at level 4 or level 4 color plan.
Level 4. So it'll create an area plan. So if I go to area plan, it's going to create that. Now, I think it should give me, right? So it sees an area here and it sees an area here. So it really just read those core walls for me. I really kind of want to get into, and I think, yep, that's why. So when I tagged that and I made that area plan, it only read the cores right there. And that's most likely because I had a bleed through, right? Level 4 had some exterior wall surface, but it didn't have all of them. Or in this case here, it wasn't fully enclosed. I had wall openings, so it doesn't see that complete boundary. So there are some flaws to it. Unless you have a fully enclosed space, it's not going to pick it up. Also, too, by default, Revit's area lines are going to come across as purple. In this case, there's a default setting that SGA is set to make them black. So we need to come in and under areas, I need to look at those reference lines. Which is there, so that gives me my reference area lines, and then also my separator boundary lines. So go to VB. So similar to the way rooms work, are also the area lines. So again, lines for the boundary conditions should be found under area, under lines. Area boundary is here. I'm going to override those lines to be a thicker line weight, change them back to magenta, make them solid. There we go. Better? Bueno. Okay.
You changing under more categories or notation?
So the same way the room works, the boundary lines are found under model lines. So they'll be under lines. And it's all the way down as of the area boundary. Same place the room separators work. And then under annotation categories is where the tag is held. And then the actual color fill, because we can do color fill the same way we do the rooms, right? So then under areas itself in visibility, there's reference lines and color fills. So that's why I say they are similar, but they are different insofar as I can actually grab the boundaries of my areas and move them. And it's kind of like CAD now. So I'm able to come in and draw area boundaries. I could do this with room separators, but area boundaries are all calculated that way. And you can see that it's handling those outside conditions each differently, right? How am I calculating that? When I meet a condition where I have an exterior face surface versus the interior face surface, how is that handled? TL for thin lines, I'm coming in, do I want to push and pull that? How do I want that calculated? Right?
This is better for GSF numbers than.
You got it. This is gross square footage. Exactly. That's what this is intended for. More granular kind of understanding the building. Not so far as, hey, I got a 100 square foot bathroom. That's how much tile I need for the finish, or that's what I'm renting out. This is more so for hitting your numbers correctly. Like I said, exterior boundary faces versus interior walls. Am I measuring it from interior or am I measuring it from exterior? Move that. To explicitly tell that thing to move, right? How it's being calculated. Tagging it's going to be the same way. I'm going to come in and tag my areas. So if I have a bounding surface or a bounding area, it's going to allow me to tag it. If I don't have a bounding area, I obviously cannot tag it. So in this case, I need to TL and find out where I'm missing. So even here, I need to make sure I drag those, cancel that. I need to drag my area calcs beyond each other. So there's going to be overlap that happens. Right? Each one of these. So there's a lot more fine tuning that happens with this, and that's And that's because you are calculating gross square footage, right? So, let's see, where else would we be, where we need to get that to overlap? We're fine there, we're fine there, we're fine there. So now I should be able to tag that area. Where am I missing here? So they're good. So there's another case, right? So there's really a lot of fine tuning, and really, like you said, making sure that's why it's doing exterior walls, making sure I check each one of these, right? Because this becomes tedious. This is like worse than CAD in some aspects, right? In some ways, it's more accurate than CAD. Okay. So that. Check all of our conditions. There's another one. So you always have to make sure you're going beyond on those lines.
Can you draw that further?
Excuse me?
Can you draw it yourself? I mean, that would be done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can draw this myself. If I went and let's make a new plan, right? Or let's say that this was my exterior. I can come in and do my area boundaries similar, right? I'm going to come in and start drawing my area, and I can do my pick line. So I would pick line for this. Yep. Yeah, traditionally, I mean, if I know my building's somewhat complete, I'll let it generate the lines. You know, in cases where I know my building's not complete and I'm kind of fudging it a little bit, I'll come in and actually draw them in like this. In this case, I don't need them. They'll be connecting. Pull that back. Good. Then I'll go ahead and tag that area. Area tag. Check here. There we go. So that's bounding as well. Cool. And then if I want to add, so I can tag my area, tag all not area. So I need the area first, and then I can tag it if I don't have the tag. Some other things, it works the same as the room. I'm going to define a color scheme. So the area plan can only have area. So by default, when I bring this in, whether it be a legend or by doing it through the color scheme, when I come into the View tab, or excuse me, Annotate tab, losing steam here, I'm going to do my color fill legend. It's going to ask me the same question. Do I want an area gross building? Only chance I can have on an area plan is that. And then what am I looking at? SGA gross building area or actual gross building area? Right. I've seen this used as a dual purpose, right? Even though it says gross building area, like I said, doing Bowman calcs and things like that. You can begin kind of fudging that number a little bit. In this case, I have two buildings, right? I have one building on one side, building on the other side. I can treat that area plan as rooms, but most of the time your gross building area will be this. If I come into the color scheme itself, right, I have area. So what other things can I do? I have area, area type, number, and perimeter are the only things I can schedule out of that. Now what's nice is if I do it by area, right, I have 4 areas within my set, right? So 4 enclosed spaces. So in this case, it's mimicking 4 enclosed buildings. And then I can start setting up conditional statements with it. Am I meeting a program requirement or am I not meeting a core program requirement? So if I do it by range, it says everything greater than this or everything less than this. So everything that's greater than 20, everything's less than 20. So everything in this case is greater. If I wanted to go less, so I would say 1, what is my, I'm not going to go less than, want me? Area is greater than 100 square, let's do 1,000 square feet. And then that'll do less than. Apply, click OK. So then I see conditional, so I'll say, oh, whoops, hey, those are under. Okay. Makes sense for everybody? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 3, and we'll touch on schedules and print some sheets. Cool. And we're out of here. Friday.
Cool.
Thirsty Friday. freaky for everyone.